I put in trying to sell something that was, everything was at 30 cents, and I put 40, and then it'll get filled, but everything stayed close to 30. Is that a market order that went and grabbed my 40? And
so the question is, you place your order, and the current price of whatever you're after is 30 cents.
But I'm asking 40.
You're asking for 40 cents. Why do you sometimes get filled at 40 cents? It could be that the markets have a quick intraday movement. It could be the market makers said it's going to go our direction eventually before the end of the day. They snap it up before, try to change it to the price. It could be any reason.
Yeah.
So usually that won't happen too often, but if you get it, it's an extra blessing. Just take
absolutely. But I just figured maybe somebody put through a market order and they thought, oh heck, we
could be a market order. Yeah. You get it, you take it.
Yeah.
The strategy you're using on the covered calls, you're using that in place of the traditional collars, or do you use collars also?
The strategy we covered here with the covered call trade, to use that in place of collars, anyone that you want to do. I'm just going to try to find out what's going to make the best rate of return for me. The nice thing about a collar is you kind of limit your downside with this. With this, you're not really limiting your downside, which is why you have to monitor it. What you're doing is you're maximizing your upside. And I prefer, since I know how to alter a trade, I prefer to maximize my upside. If I didn't know how to alter a trade, I try to minimize my downside. I guess that's a little different.
What happens if you're trying to do an adjustment order the next day with a limit? Couldn't that really go against you bad?
Sometimes, what times you try to do an adjustment and you might not get filled being part of it. So you have to then just say, okay, that's no longer valid. Now here's the new position. What are my choices now?
When you say a limit order, do you give it some room in there, maybe 5 or 10 cents?
When I say a limit order, usually I'm going right at the current price, wherever it closed that day. Yeah. Almost always right at that price.
So the close of the previous day?
So if the option I looked at closed at $3 that day, I'm thinking about buying it the next day, I want to buy it right at $3. I don't usually say $2.90, or I might, I don't use like a stop and say a buy stop order. If the stock hits this price, buy automatically, wherever it closed at. And I almost always get my fills because the markets move around. Okay, any other online questions, Matt?
What does your broker trader on Wall Street focus on?
Broker trader on Wall Street doesn't focus on what we just covered here. It focuses on what happens on Wall Street. What do the market makers do? So if you don't really know what happens behind it, when you push the button on your computer to buy or sell something, what's happening back there? That's what it focuses on. More of a general concept. It's more of a, not necessarily a history lesson, but more of like a documentary on what's happening behind Wall Street. It has a few strategies. It has a few strategies, but it's more about what's happening on Wall Street.
That's your only book that you're on?
I have a second one that's not published yet, but it's only one, yeah.
You use Brokers Express. You expect other people who trade with you use the same thing?
I use Brokers Express. I expect other people to use it. I expect you to use whatever you're most comfortable with. Okay. The only reason I use them, they work really well for me. And sometimes, because like I say, this is a service where when you do have a job, you have to do other things. I travel a lot. I take a lot of vacations. I have a nice house on a private island that sometimes I don't want to do anything but just sit there. I'll call my broker, Brokers Express, and say, watch this position and do this, we'll make this happen. And I like to have that person that does that for me versus a computer, because computers, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. It has to do this. Where my broker, I give him a little leeway. If you think it's not going to work out, it's going to do this for me. Nothing for perfecting problems, but for my own personal account, I like to have a person I can talk to. So you use whoever you're most comfortable with.
Do you use Invest Tools for anything?
I use Invest Tools for anything. I use a lot of the education that they taught me, which I created, but yes. Products and services, no. If you have them, I'd use them. They're fantastic. I like Invest Tools. I had a big hand in where they went to until they got bought out by Toss. I like the company. I really do. But if you have them, I'd say use them. If you don't have them, a lot of good information out on the website that you can use for other purposes right now.
Do you have a percentage dedicated only for trade?
Do I have a percentage of my account that's dedicated? My entire futures account is strictly trading, and probably 50% of my brokerage account is trading. As a trading account. Doesn't mean I use 50%. I probably use about 15%, but 50% I just use strictly for trading. The other 50% is my investment. But that's because I'm comfortable with it. You specifically, if you're not a very good trader, then most of your money should be in the investment part. I can't tell you how to put that part in your account. That's whatever you're comfortable with. And you should be comfortable with whatever. Take a look at what you've done in the past. If you're not a very good trader, and you know, if you had a lot of losses, most of your investment should be long-term until you learn the proper aspects of adjusting trades.
Do you manage others' money for your fee?
What's that?
Do you manage others' money for your fee?
Do I manage other people's money for them? No. No, I'd rather teach you what to do. And the only reason, I guess there's two reasons for that. If I can teach you, then you become a better trader. And the second part is when you manage other people's money, you don't always understand what you're doing. And if you have their money, sometimes they get upset. Not everybody's as polite as when they give you the money. I'm okay to speak. And I try to be a nice person, a good, honest person, but not everybody is that way. You go on the internet and read a lot of stuff about me. Not all of it's correct. Good stuff is.
Like you mentioned, your record for this year, was it really this strong like 5 years ago, or when did you really start making
When did I really start this? Probably about 7 years ago. Really became, really dug into what I was doing. First 2 years were good. 3 was, I've always felt really comfortable, like after, say, the first 2 years, but I didn't really understand how to really manage trade and alter it the way I'm doing now, so aside from like the last maybe 7 years.
And you left.
I'm still doing okay, which what I consider to be very, very good. Yeah. But to the grasp of what happens if, okay, if it does this, what are all the choices I can have? What if? When you get that, that's when you really feel comfortable. Then you're no longer afraid of the stock market. You respect it, but you're not afraid of it. You're not afraid of it, the emotion goes away.
How long ago you left Invest?
Back to Best Tools about a year, almost a year and a half ago.
Oh, so you have the income trader before that.
I've had income trader for 10 years.
You probably already answered my question, but I was wondering what you did when this last November came, when a lot of people lost a lot of money. I think it was late October or November. How did that, you don't get excited about things, but how did that work?
So the markets were just tanking, and they sold out heavy this last October, November area. What was I doing? I was doing a lot of different types of trades. It wasn't scary. It was actually kind of an exciting time. It was a very cautious time. You had to be really cautious. I liked what was happening, only because the more movement there is, the easier it is to trade. When you have a defined trend, it's pretty easy to trade. When there's no defined trend, you don't know what's going to happen, it makes it a little more difficult. Where you doubt some of your positions because it's okay, it's going up, okay, fine, it's going up, so you get to helps right back down again. It's not a defined uptrend. It's a little more difficult, but if it's in a straight downtrend like that, it's pretty easy to trade. Obviously, you got to do a lot of monitoring if you have any stocks. If you do a covered calls, you got to start buying back and rolling down. You got to do some different things out there. A lot of things to do. But I didn't mind it. I thought it was actually a good time.
And you didn't lose too much.
I didn't lose any money between October and December.
Wow.
All my trades back. The only loss I had was back in September of last year. One trade.
So how did you do overall for last year then? When most
I did
people.
well.
Most
Overall,
people.
did I do, what was that?
You made money rather than.
I made money, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did well.
Online question, what's your average return on investment monthly?
Average ROI, I can't tell you about brokerage accounts, the whole thing, unless I give you every trade, the SEC rules, but for the perfecting profits, the average ROI is almost 20% and about 3.5 weeks per trade. It's average for us.